2004, a full 2 decades ago. The year of Facebook, but only for college students. Everyone else would have to be content with MySpace. The first of two transits of Venus for this time period occurred, and they won't happen again for another century or so. This was the year of notable sequels such as Shrek 2, Spider-Man 2, and Harry Potter 3, as well as some game sequels like GTA San Andreas and Halo 2. We received major blockbusters in the form of The Passion of the Christ and The Incredibles, as well as some future cult classics like Mean Girls and Napoleon Dynamite. Gmail launched, but everyone thought it was a prank because it was announced on April Fool's Day of all days. However, 2004 was also bereft. YouTube wouldn't be launched until the following year. The platform formerly known as Twitter, the year after that, along with Wattpad. But don't worry, fanfiction.net was already 6 years old by this point. There's too many things to name, really. I'll try to cover more pop culture as the series progresses. The most important thing, in this humble host's opinion, is the launch of the supernatural thriller show called Lost. 20 years later, and it still consumes me. Hence the title. Welcome to Lost Ate My Podcast. Now, I am not going to be the only one hosting this. My name is BusyBee, and I am here with one of the not quite founding members of the fuselage, but a pretty big part of it. Her name is hijinx, but I call her something else entirely. I call her Mom. Hi, Mom.
Did you just call me Mom?
I called you Mom.
That's not what you call me.
Okay, I'm sorry. Hi, Mama.
There you
go. So, hijinx went through most of this at the time of it. However, I was only 10 years old, so she's going to be the one I bounce most of the stuff off of. She has wanted me to call her the color commentator of this podcast.
Yes, I'm here to hold your hand and to guide you. Yes.
It's so more of you're going to be the mamapedia of this whole thing.
Which is what you and your brother called me through most of your childhood, because I know everything.
If you didn't know it, you knew how to find it.
Exactly.
Exactly.
I'm a master Googler.
Yeah, so this episode, we're going to talk about a couple of things, but we're going to start with the fact that we've already watched the episode. And before we discuss it, I'm going to give everyone else a chance.
Which episode are we watching?
Go watch it, because we're going to get into the guts of it here in a sec.
And which episode are we watching?
The pilot, of course.
Well, you haven't said that.
We start at the beginning. It's a very good place to start.
Some people are crazy and start not in the beginning, which in this show and in this case would be ridiculous.
That'd be terrible. Yes. Though to be fair, there are enough flashbacks and forwards and sideways. You can figure it out in the long run, no matter where you start.
Yeah, there's people who watch the whole series and don't know what happened. So,
okay, so if you haven't done so already, pause the episode, go watch the first episode, the pilot, and come back to us. Pilot part 1.
Okay.
Next week's episode will be pilot part 2. Alrighty, welcome back. I know you were gone for so long. Some of you were gone for mere seconds. Others were gone for 45-ish minutes. So now we're going to talk about...
Others are gone for 20 years. Some of us.
Well, yes, it aired 20 years ago today, in fact, if I planned this all right. But no, we're going to talk about the episode and what we remembered going into it. I actually wrote down what I thought would happen, because it's been 6 or 7 years since my last rewatch. And I didn't finish the whole series then. It's probably been close to 20 since I watched season 6.
Did I let you watch it when it came out?
I don't remember if you let me watch the first episode. You definitely by the 4th or the 5th we were in.
Okay, I know you didn't watch it the night that it came out. I watched it with your dad, which I'm pretty sure that was the only episode he watched.
Probably.
The fact I got him to watch that was amazing. But
miracles.
Yeah, so I know you didn't watch it the night it came, and plus it came on at like 10 o'clock at night. So there's no way that you guys watched it when it aired.
A lot of people watched it when it aired. I went and looked it up.
I know, yeah. It had gangbuster numbers when it premiered. So I know you didn't watch it when it aired. I'm not sure, but yeah, I should throw this out there. I have not rewatched the entire series. And I have only rewatched the pilot once before, and that was a couple of years ago. I've told you that.
No, I don't think I realized. I started
haven't
doing
watched,
my rewatch
I
6
haven't
years ago because I tried to
rewatched.
get Junior in.
Yes. Well, I haven't rewatched Alias either. And it's just my thing. I can't explain it, but I rewatched the pilot once, and that was when your cousins and uncle came to visit me.
Nee.
And it's because my niece, your cousin, became a rabid fan of Lost and really wanted to watch it with me. So that was the first time I had watched the pilot. And at that time, it would have been about 18 years.
Speaking of said cousin, it won't be for this episode, but by hopefully the second or third episode, she will have made the logo for this.
Yay!
She's gonna be a little behind on it, so we'll have a Canva thing. That's probably what you're all looking at right now, but I don't think I was allowed to watch it like day of. Because you and Dad watched it first.
Well, yeah, and we wanted to see what all was going to be in it, and or at least that's how I am about things, especially because you would have been 10 and your brother was 7.
Mm-hmm.
So,
but I was trying to think if I remembered anything very specifically weird from the first episode. And my 2 favorite things, I wrote them down, and yeah, sure enough, they were in the first episode. I was very proud of my memory for that. It was the orange slice in Locke's teeth.
Oh. Mm-hmm.
And the guy getting sucked into the engine, which I don't think is actually possible for a downed plane.
No, it is. I
think there's like certain mechanisms that shut it off. But
no, I mean it's well,
I'm not a scientist. I'm not a pilot. I don't know what it is.
Well, there's what's called the suspension of disbelief. It's very famous in the land of television. And
time to get away from everything.
It might not be 100% possible, but if it's just possible enough,
it's the what if
they can get away. Yeah, obviously it's used a lot in sci-fi, definitely, where they, if they can make it believable enough, and the way that, and actually, one of the things I always loved about the pilot, and I loved it again watching it, the whole first, I can't remember how many minutes it is, but just that whole, you from the moment that Jack opens his eyes,
very iconic scene.
Yes, from that moment through that whole, when he first looks out, you don't see anything. He sees a pristine beach. His first pan, you don't see anything, and then suddenly you hear the screaming, which is Shannon screaming.
Yeah.
And then you look around that wooded air, the jungle, and then see all the chaos, and it hits you all at once. From that moment of chaos, it's like nonstop chaos for like the next 7-8 minutes.
Until Boone hands him pens, and I think that's the end of the chaos.
Well, no, it's
the end of the initial chaos. Yeah,
it's by the time he goes and leans and looks into the fuselage at the bodies that are in the fuselage, but I mean, it's him. It's Jack running back and forth, and it's just, and that is, it's like the begin. It's like that scene in Saving Private Ryan when they hit the beach. I mean, it's that constant stuff going on, and it's supposed to be giving you that feeling of this plane just crashed. It's not like them waking up hours later. It's like this plane just crashed, and so that got the engine going, the wing of the plane crashing down, or that or the big chunk of metal or whatever.
I think it was the wing. Down. It looked like the wing.
I think it was supposed to be.
It was a little mangled. Hard to be certain.
But there had to have been. I mean, whether or not there would have been enough fuel or velocity, torque or whatever left in the engine for it to suck a man into it, I'm sure is questionable. But like I said, there's probably just that enough that they're asking you to have that suspension of disbelief that, this is TV. So, I mean, with all the other chaos, it was believable because of everything else that was going on. And that's a JJ thing. That's the Damon Lindelof thing. And, you get to know them, you get to realize that's what they do. But I mean, I would have to believe that not that I think JJ would have researched it enough that if he found that there was a possibility, then he used it. But what if it had just crashed like 5 minutes ago? Would it be possible? And if he got a yes, then he went with it. That's a JJ thing. So anyway, go ahead.
So getting into a couple of other things. One, this episode focused on trying to find the cockpit and the pilot. And 10-year-old me thought that that's why the first 2 episodes are called the pilot. Because I thought it's because they were trying to find the pilot. Imagine poor
the pilot. It's just pilot.
Okay, well, I thought he was like Cher or Prince.
He was really important. But
yes, he was JJ's lucky charm, Greg Grunberg. That's who he was.
But to be fair, JJ probably did intentionally at least have the first episode called pilot, because he did not name every one of his episodes.
10-year-old me.
No, it wasn't. I mean, but I am 100% convinced that the double entendre was meant. JJ doesn't name every one of his TV shows he's done. The first episode is not called pilot in every one of them. He called that one pilot because they were trying to find the pilot. And the last scene of the episode is the pilot.
And
so you're not wrong.
You described it to me as a pilot being the episode that launches the show.
Mm-hmm.
And the only reason why I came to you and asked about it was because of iCarly, which aired 3 years later. I was 13 and I noticed the episode was called iPilot. And I was like, why the heck did they name it Pilot? There's no pilot in the episode. And that's when you had to come
I don't even remember explaining that to you, but of course, I'm glad I did. And I'm glad that I crushed your dreams. So
you did.
You're welcome.
It's all right. That's what we're here for, right?
And that's what I'm here for, to crush your dreams.
So, for those of you wondering why the name of the why the name of the podcast is Lost Ate My Podcast, and why it is us two hosting. 1, I really wanted to go back and watch Lost for the 20-year anniversary. 2, I knew that Hijinx, my mother, used to be on the Fuselage website, and she did a podcast there. And reason it wasn't on the Fuselage?
Mm-mm.
Well, then I'll correct that in a minute. But the third reason, because she wrote a book. She co-authored it, but she wrote a book called Lost Ate My Life.
This is brand new information.
Yeah, the sarcasm is off the hook today.
Sarcasm is always on the hook.
Was that sarcasm?
Oh, that reminds me. Well, keep talking. I'm still here.
So when I originally had this idea, I approached Hijinx and I asked her if she'd be willing to host it with me. And she said, no, I don't want to host it. I said, co-host, mother. No, I don't want. I'll be the color commentator, she said a few days later. So that's how I dragged her into this, kicking and screaming.
I wrote a book.
You wrote a book. It was called My Life, and it was about your experience in the fandom. She co-wrote a book, and it followed her experience along with another gentleman from Fuselage. I think he went by...
Not from the Fuselage.
Also not from the Fuselage. Who are these people?
He ran a very popular Lost blog.
Okay. So... She co-wrote a book with somebody who had been very big in the Lost blogging scene. And what was his screen name again? Arts? Was that it?
Yeah, he went by Doc Arts, I think.
Which, as someone who studied German, is hilarious to me. His name is Doctor. But...
Well, yeah, I mean, there is a character on Lost called Doc Arts.
So I know, that's why I found it hilarious once I started learning German. I learned that the doctor was called Arts, and I cracked up in middle of class, and everyone looked at me like I was losing my mind. Probably was. That's not the point. So she co-wrote this book, and it followed their journey in the fandom watching the show and the different events that went on and their experiences with it. I'm not crazy, even though I never read the book cover to cover. I read cover and cover.
Rude.
Do you know how much I've wanted to read it in the past 2 years since having this idea? And I can't. I've been avoiding IMDb and fandom and your book.
Why? It's not like you haven't seen.
Because I don't want spoilers. I'm trying to re-experience it
From
as an adult.
book.
Yeah. I'm trying to keep like all my memories like new. But there is one thing in your book I do remember, that I have a bone to pick with Damon Lindelof. But that's not for a few seasons.
What do you have to pick with Damon?
It's about a character passing.
You already had. I already got Berkey to apologize to you.
I need it for Damon. I know. Berkey apologized to me.
I literally have an email from Berkey apologizing to you. Nobody else got apologized from the executive producer of the show?
Because everyone knew how I felt. Even the producers. I was lied to.
I'm sorry, but
Damon's the one who wrote the lie.
You're not getting any higher up the food chain than Berkey, so
I know. Could go to JJ.
No, if I bumped into JJ again, he would probably still remember me. I could probably get an apology out of him. So there you go.
Yeah, I have hope for the future to get an apology.
Whenever I get you out to LA, we'll go to Bad Robot, and I'll see if I can dig up JJ for you. He's a lot harder to find now.
I bet he's gotten quite big.
Like movies and stuff. So the reason why two things. The reason why I hesitated, and then the reason why I agreed. So
I can just think of Olaf holding his head saying, "You hesitated."
Yes. So once upon a time. So I got involved with the fuselage, which, I mean, we haven't even talked about the fuselage, but the fuselage was a online website, obviously, that was sponsored by J.J. Abrams. It was a fan site. I mean, it was for the fans, but it was actually sponsored by J.J. So it was, blessed by the higher ups. It had people who were associated with the show, actors, producers, writers, directors, who actually would come on occasionally and interact one-on-one with fans. This was unheard of at the time. This is before social media was a real thing. Like you said in the little intro, to be on Facebook, you had to actually attend a college. I mean, Facebook wasn't a thing. There was no Snapchat or Twitter. You could not talk directly to an actor. There were no blue check marks.
Twitter didn't exist for, what I say, 2 more years, 2006?
Yeah, Twitter, none of that existed when Lost started. So the fuselage, it had 2 boards. It had what was called the linear board, and then it had the threaded board. The linear board was like a continuous chat room, is the best way to explain it, where it was just one long chat. And, you just jumped in. The best way to go would be to scroll down and see what everybody was talking about. You had your handle. My handle is hijinx. It's your alias. It's whatever name you're using on the board. And, all the normal users had one color. I think it was green. And then, it wasn't green. It was whatever. I can't remember now. But then if you were a VIP, VIPs got assigned their own colors. So Damon Lindelof, he would come on. His handle was the Nomad, which, by the way, Damon spelled backwards is Nomad. So
It is.
yes, he would come on as the Nomad. His color was like a dark green. JJ, the few times he came on, he came on as JJ Abrams. His color was red. Berkey, which is Brian Burke, executive producer, that was the person who I was closest to. His first color was blue, but I think he changed his color to red later. He would come on as Berkey. There were some other writers, Javier Grillo, Mark Swatch. He came on as Javi. I think he had a red color too. Some of the colors got used. Some people had different colors. Some people might come in like and comment once. Some people came in a lot. The writers came in. There were certain writers that came in a lot. Javi came in a lot. He was there a lot. There's some people that maybe came in once. Terry O'Quinn, who played John Locke.
Really?
He would come in periodically. Usually if he had an episode, because he liked to come in and see what people thought of his episodes.
The ones that focus specifically on him. And flashbacks.
I think his color was green, and he posted it as himself. But if there was an actor who wanted to come in, who wanted to interact, they would have to get their color, they would have to get a login through Carrie, who Carrie and Artie were the two people who owned and ran the board.
Mm-hmm.
And so they would get their login and then get a color picked out for them. And then that was the linear board. Like I said, it was just one continuous conversation. And usually you would go in, you'd read to see what they were talking about, and then you just jump in. Continuous conversation. It sounds like a lot. It's so confusing if you've never done one of those before.
It sounds a lot like Discord right now.
Yeah, it probably is. But instead of having like all these little instead of like having multiple subreddits,
it's like if a Discord channel just had one.
It's like everybody's in the same room, and you
can do the colors and stuff like that too. So
yeah. So if you would, but I don't know if y'all go top. But the most recent comment is at the very top.
So it's flipped.
So So if you want to see, whatever the last thing somebody said is at the very top. So if you want to see what's been going on for the past day or days, you scroll, and sometimes you're scrolling through pages and pages and pages, and you could pick out, you could address to people or whatever. And I think we had a way where you could like Control F or something like that, and you could find people's names, or and that was a way to find out if any of the VIPs had gotten on. And on the night of an episode, the linear board was nuts, because that was when we kind of knew that people like Damon or JJ or Berkey or any of the writers, they would watch the linear board because we would post there in real time as we're watching the episode. So we'd be talking with each other, freaking out about, and one of our favorite things was like when the polar bear shows up. And we came up with the expression.
For anyone who's actually like watching for the first time, we will do multiple spoilers because we've seen the show before. So just a heads up.
And actually, the polar bear's in part 2, isn't it?
Yeah, it's in part 2.
Oops, sorry. Anyway.
Oops, smoke monster.
We came up with the expression, essentially, well, are we cussing on this? Anyway, it's OMGWTF polar bear. That was put all as one thing. So that, it went over to the thread board too. But whenever we responded to something, that would come up. But yeah, so they could actually read us, and if you wanted to go somewhere, because the thread board is like a traditional message board where everything is separated by topics. You could go in and, if anybody had a theory on this, there was all those topics. That's more like Reddit or...
That's the other pages on Discord.
That was the thread board. Yeah, that's anything, everything's separated by a topic. You can have your little avatar. You can have, people can, you have your little stat pages and your friends, and you can do all that kind of stuff. So the thread board is all like that. And at the bottom, it'll list everybody who's online. At one point, there were and that's where, you have be a member, and it on your avatar, it'll show who you are. So at one point, like I said, I joined the Fuselage about a week after Lost aired.
Oh, wow,
I
you've
don't
been there
remember what,
since basically the beginning.
yeah. I don't remember what member number I was. I mean, it was the low thousands. At one point, I believe the Fuselage had over 1 million registered users. And when an episode was airing, we could have over 100,000 people active on the site.
Oh, that,
I mean,
that poor message board. I can just imagine
we are
smoking
not
as
talking.
people
Yeah,
comment.
we're not talking. I mean, we're talking about like the first. This is like the first year loss. I mean, this was a massive, massive,
and
show.
That's
and
like
this
computers
and this
were
was
decent back then, but still.
and we're talking. I mean, I'm like I said, this is pre-Twitter, when there's Twitter and there's Facebook and there's all these other different social media sites. Everybody's kind of spread out.
Mm-hmm.
But the reason why the Fuselage is so unique is because it was blessed by JJ. And we knew he was going to be there. Or not just him, but we knew that Damon would come, and we knew that the writers would come, and we knew that every once in a while an actor would surprise us. And that was enough that, especially like I said, on the night of a new episode airing, that place was buzzing. And because of my encyclopedic knowledge of all things JJ, and because very early on I had been reading some comments from Berkey and decided to make a fan club for him.
Yeah, you did. I was never an official member. Mom wouldn't let me.
You're too young. Well, you weren't a member of the Fuselage, so you couldn't. Well, I guess I wasn't technically true. Anyway, I mean, you were 10 years old. That's a little weird.
I know.
Anyway, so I started the Berkey Babes, and anyway, so Berkey found out, and that became a whole thing. And eventually, I became a moderator for the Fuse. Eventually, I became an Uber moderator at the Fuse. The Fuse is just the Fuse, the Lodge. We had a lot of different nicknames for it. But as an Uber moderator, there was like maybe 3 of us, and we were like one step below Carrie and Artie. Well, Artie was literally, he was the one who did all the machinations of. He was the one that held the Fuselage together. He's the one that designed, built it and stuff. Carrie was the real owner of it. And Carrie and Artie with admins. But I mean, when it came down to like the decisions and stuff, I mean, half the time Carrie was running them past me. And that is just because I have a legal background. And when it came down to there being somebody causing a ruckus on the threaded board somewhere, I was usually the one they brought in. Because
hijinx, make them stop.
Pretty much. My color is goldenrod.
Yeah.
And I was pretty much the goldenrod of doom, and they would ask me to come in and dress people down. So anyway, yeah. So I was an Uber mod on the Fuselage, and it was so much fun. We had Uber mods and super mods and mini mods. As it kept getting bigger and bigger, we couldn't control everyone.
Well,
Especially
yeah, now
the
there's over
threaded board.
100,000 people on the site.
Yeah, the linear board was easier to control because we could see everything, and we could slap people around and get them off of there, and that was pretty easy. But because you could see it in real time when things were getting out of hand. But on the threaded board, there's so many different hidey holes. So yeah, we had to get a bunch of mini mods and stuff into place, and so anyway, so all that to say, I was up to my armpits in Lost.
You were wading through the wreckage with everyone else.
And so the good, the bad, the ugly as the seasons were on. And then around season 3 is when I got approached about the book. Doc Arts, who ran a really popular Lost blog, he had come up with the idea for the book first, but he knew he didn't have enough material to do it on his own. And so, funnily enough, I think it was, so I was friends with the script coordinator for Lost. I know a lot of the behind the scenes people from Lost, from Fuselage, which is the other thing that my daughter is never forgiven me for because she wasn't old enough to meet all these people. Anyway, Greg Nations was the script coordinator, and I was chatting with him, and he said something about you should really write a book for all the stuff that you know, because I knew a bunch about the behind the scenes stuff of what was going on with the fans and the behind the scenes stuff that was going on with the show. And I was chatting with him and chatting with John at the same time. John is Doc Arts. And somehow I had Greg saying, you should write a book. And John said, hey, you should help me with my book. And I'm like, are you guys talking to each other right now? So I asked John, what the book was about, what he was going to do. And so we kind of brainstormed and came up with the treatise, so to speak, the project, so that he could present it to the people who had asked him, because he had been approached about doing the book. But like I said, he hadn't been able to come up with a successful, whatever the write-up thing is, that because he had to come up with something that they were actually going to.
What, like a synopsis?
Well, I mean, it's it's like the 1-page. It's essentially the synopsis of it actually wasn't 1 page. We had to come up with like a chapter by chapter. This is what the book's going to be about. An actual breakdown of like what every chapter would be. And we had like so many weeks to come up with it, and who's going to write what, how many words we thought it was going to be. And we had to have a full outline essentially to send them to show that we would have enough to make a book, and it was going to be a book that was going to be readable or, sellable. So, yeah. And then they bought it and they were like, yeah, we'll do it. So anyway, by that, I mean, by the time you did the book, all that kind of stuff, we had fan parties in California that I went to. I went to most of them. I went to 3 of the 4. And
we're talking about those more in depth in a later episode. Because I think they deserve their own episode.
I know they're going to, but I'm just kind of giving. So this is I'm trying to explain just how deep,
how many pies your fingers are sticking in.
Yeah. And I went to Comic-Con. I went to Dragon Con. I mean, I sat on Lost panels. I mean, and I did, as my daughter mentioned, I did I don't even remember how many episodes we did. At one point in time, I owned a website called Evil Puppet Masters.
That's what it was.
And one of the other moderators on the Fuselage, Speaker, he and I became really good friends. We had a very like temperament. We called we were like each other's yin and yang. Mm-hmm. And so he and I did Evil Puppet Masters podcast. So we didn't just talk about Lost. It was pretty much anything. We like to call JJ and Damon Evil Puppet Masters because they kept pulling our strings. Yeah, because he was also a fan of like Alias, and that time JJ started doing. I think he started doing the Mission Impossible movies. I think this is before the Star Trek and Star Wars, though. But anyway, so
it's definitely before Star Wars. I think Star Trek was 2009.
I don't remember. But anyway, so he's pulling all these strings and stuff, and and just we're following along because we're the puppets. So anyway, so we did, I want to say 3 or 4, maybe 5 episodes. I don't remember. Podcast. So somewhere down a rabbit hole. The speaker probably still has it. We're still friends. He's hilarious. Yeah, he cracks me up. But again, like I said, the reason why it was so massive back then was just because, I mean, there was nothing else like it. And I still don't think there's anything like it. Fandom wise, or, you know, to have so much, I mean, to have the blessing of the creators and to have it all in one place and to have the people all in one place. But, you know, just like anything else, you know, there's some people who rub me the wrong way and there's people I rub the wrong way. And I got by like the 5th season, you know, there's a lot of people who didn't like the end of it or the way that it ended. I think that was the 5th season was shortened because of a writer's strike.
Was it the 5th season? I thought it was the 4th.
No, the 5th season has the small.
1, 2, 3, 4. 4 and 5 are both short.
Okay.
4 had like 14 episodes, give or take, and 5 had 17 episodes.
Yeah. So, I mean, the last 2 seasons were really tough because, you know, the writers
season 6 had 18. So they're all short.
So, you know, the writers had to change things creatively. A lot of people don't, you know, they got accused of never having a plan or, you know, all this kind of stuff. And people don't understand.
Did they have a 7-season plan, though?
No, I don't think so. People don't understand how actors work or contracts work or how TV works. But anyway, I'm not going to get into that. Anyway.
We'll see that for another episode.
Yeah. Anyway, things got really nasty and bitter in some corners of the fuselage. And I just got completely burned out from it. And then, you know, anyway, so, I mean, but I loved every episode. I can't, and when I get so attached and so close to a show, like I was that way with Alias as well. Watching it again, it's not the same for me.
Well, because now you have memories associated with it. It's not you're watching it new.
Well, yeah, because I mean, it's you know,
you have 20 years of baggage on these episodes.
Well, it's kind of like let's go to high school again, or like let's go to college again. I mean, it's a full experience for me. It's not just a show. I mean, you know, I can watch. You know, my daughter and son and I, we love the television show Psych. I can watch those episodes over and over and over again because they make me genuinely happy. I'm not involved in any kind of fandom related stuff with Psych. But
unless it involves trying to find the pineapple in each episode.
Well, that has nothing to do with a fandom, though.
It does with our household.
I know, and we'll watch Emperor's New Groove like a billion times, and that will never make me sad.
Shoulder,
but when it comes to like Alias or when it comes to Lost, I was so heavily involved in the fandoms for those shows that those like reflect. Those bring up memories that have nothing to do with the show itself, but with the people and the experiences that I had with those shows as well. So anyway, but when BusyBee was talking about the fact that she didn't get to experience the show like I got to experience the show, you know, I was like, I have to think about it because I was so invested. I mean, more so than just about everyone else, except for those who actually had their fingers in it. I mean, you have to understand, I have toured. I did not do a tour of the Lost stage. Actually, Doc Hart's did. John did.
Oh, did he?
That. Yeah. That's in the book. If you'd read it.
Oh, it is in the book. You know what? Isn't there a picture of him on the island or
yes.
something? Okay,
Yes.
I flipped through and looked at the pictures because I was like 13 or 14 when he wrote the book.
But, I mean, to the point that, like, I've toured Bad Robot, like, 3 or 4 of their offices because they were bouncing around. I mean, I've met a lot of people and seen a lot of stuff that a lot of people would kill for. And, these people trusted me. I mean, I got Christmas presents from Bad Robot.
There's a picture of me somewhere of me eating a gingerbread cookie with red frosting that looked like a bad robot. And I had the Joker smile going on from the red frosting. I think we did that on purpose too.
I thought you were talking about the fact that you and your brother are on the Alias DVDs.
Are we? I don't remember this.
Yeah, y'all are on a Christmas card.
Oh, okay. So
Rick.
I knew that we were on a Christmas card behind somebody. Rick. And I just didn't remember where or when.
It's on an Easter egg on the Alias. It's only on the Rimbaldi set. So
I love his Easter eggs. They're so much fun to find.
So we're getting off track.
We always get off topic.
I have to edit this a lot. All that's to say, it's opening a can of worms, but hopefully it'll be good. It'll be a good can of worms. Maybe gummy worms?
Sour gummy worms, probably. But they're still good.
Oh, not sour. I don't like sour gummy worms.
I love sour. I don't. We can have both in the can. She's pretending to throw up on me, folks.
I'm not pretending it's real. Okay. Anyway, but seeing how much, knowing how much you would have loved to go through those experiences that I got to go through, and how sad, because Lost really is a fantastic show. And also knowing how much my niece, which is my brother's daughter, just became completely obsessed with Lost that she has the numbers tattooed on her arm.
Oh, you reminded me. I totally forgot to mention.
I do not have a Lost tattoo. My niece has a Lost tattoo, which blows my mind. And I'm thinking of all these people who find Lost after, 20 years after Lost was in its heyday. And I'm like, what are these people going to do? Who do they have to talk to? She has no fuselage to go to. And I was like, well, so that's when I thought about that when BusyBee brought it to me. I was like, well, what if we do a rewatch of Lost and we give people someplace to go to talk about the show? And if they want some questions answered, well, I've got a lot of answers because I was there and I know quite a bit. And if I don't know everything, I still am in touch with just about everybody from the fuselage I was really good friends with.
Reason you're called Mamapedia. If you don't know the answer, you know how to find it.
Not just that, but one of the best experience about that. It's been 20 years, and I am still friends on Facebook and Instagram with a good chunk of the people I was friends with on the fuselage.
I was going to say, I think I know Javi's your friend on Facebook because he keeps popping up in my suggested friends.
Yeah. Well, Javi did the forward to my book, but but the people that I met on the fuselage and, a lot of the moderators and stuff, especially, I'm still friends with all of them. I went to the conventions with them and met them all in real life, IRL.
IRL?
And we're all still friends.
OMG.
I've seen their baby, they've gotten married and had babies, and
have I.
Shush you.
She doesn't like to be reminded of the fact that she's a grandmother.
No, I love that I'm a grandmother, but I'm just saying, if you would stop interrupting me, child. I'm saying that there are, whatever. I don't remember. I have other people who have memories as well, and they may even be interested in popping in and giving their 2 cents at some point.
Absolutely. And we'd be more than happy to have them. The more the merrier. And
they will make fun of me to no end. So
I wrote down the numbers.
4, 8, 15, 16, 23, 42.
For the record, they were 16 hours off track. That's the only quote unquote instance I saw, besides the fact that the plane is 8:15. But we know that. I'm not sure if it actually showed, but it's
They haven't shown it yet. That comes up. Yeah, it's flight 8:15.
And there are 48 passengers. 48, so I guess, but those are the ones that survived from the fuselage on the first day. So I
Are
made
you
sure.
impressed that I just rattled off the numbers like I've never forgotten them? It's been 20 years now.
We haven't forgotten them. We also know it adds up to 108, but that's a different season's answer.
4, 8, 15, 16, 23, 42.
4, 8. We're going to die.
All right. What else you got?
Before we end this episode, I have some statistics that I looked up before we started.
Did you say statistics instead of statistics?
I said statistics. Whether or not you heard statistics is up to you.
Statistics. I heard
That's
what I
a little
heard.
sadistic of you.
You said what you said. I heard what I heard.
I said what I said. Okay. So the first episode had 18.7 million people tuned in. And it was one of the most...
And a million have more on the fuselage.
And it was one of the most expensive pilots in TV history at $13 million.
JD like that moolah.
Yeah, he does. But he does it and it works. He spends the money on production and it comes out fantastic.
And he's usually under budget.
Yeah, weirdly enough.
Okay.
So the average amount of viewers per season 1 episode was 15.69 million. So they still kept that pretty high amount of viewers for the whole of the first season. And by the end of first season, beginning of the second season, they won an Emmy for Outstanding Drama Series in 2005.
Yes, I know.
Yeah, they did. But it is considered by critics as one of the best drama series on TV. And I agree wholeheartedly. With that being said, we are going to end this episode. Hijinx, is there anything you would like to add?
I can't believe you taught me this.
So mad.
I'm not mad. I'm just...
For the record, we are choosing not to use our real names because she was known mostly as Hijinx on the fuselage. Yes, you can probably figure out her name. You can probably figure out my name based on that. But I'm still going to go by BusyBee because that is one of my screen names, and she's going to go by Hijinx. And when we have guests on, we will have them also use. What'd you say to me?
I said, which is my old screen name. I don't use that screen name anymore, but it's fine.
But that's what people know you as. No one knew me as anything.
I never call you BusyBee, but no, that's fine.
That's you. With that being said, we're going to sign off on this podcast. But if you have any questions that you'd like to ask Hijinx or me, you can shoot us an email at lostatemypod@gmail.com.
If I ever got you banned from Fuselage, come at me.
We also have a Twitter and an Insta, both with the handle lostatemypod. So thank you, good listeners, and good night.